My entitled mother-in-law tries to take over my wedding, demanding that my wedding be catered to what she thinks would be good and refuse to listen to anybody else anytime they said literally anything. But after listening to this and putting up with this garbage for long enough, I decided to put my foot down and put her in her place. And now after she stormed out of the building, I feel like I'm at a crossroads with my mother-in-law because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. For a bit of background, my fiance and I have been together for 10 years and we are getting married in September. His entire family waited that long and we were only 16 when we got together. We're sticking to the classic college, marriage, and family plan. His mom, who's 62 years old, has been a unique character since I met her. She's goofy, well-spoken, and easy to talk to most of the time, though she is a bit more stiff than my family. We've never had any issues and have always gotten along really great. I love her, and she's told me that she sees me as family already and have for several years before we even got engaged. Now, it is notable that she is almost entirely deaf without her hearing aids, and even with them, she doesn't do great. We're used to speaking a bit slower and more clearly for her, and have no problem repeating things if need be. My fiance has a sister who's in college and not currently looking for a relationship, so she probably won't be planning a wedding for a while. Given how close my mother-in-law and I really are, I wanted to include her in my bridal shopping, and we both tried to include our parents in what we can. Now, my mom and grandma attended my bridal appointment with me because my mother-in-law was apparently sick and didn't want to get my grandmother ill, so she texted me the morning of to tell me that she would understand if I rather she not come because of this. My grandma is in remission after her third battle with breast cancer and is well into her 70s, so I agreed that maybe this would be for the best. I wound up finding my dress that same day, and I had a beautiful moment with my mom and grandma, and I wish she could have been there. But then later on Facebook, I see that she felt well enough to go out to an event with a bunch of her friends, and she definitely didn't look sick in any of the photos. Now, our wedding venue also has decor that we can choose from, and they will decorate it for us. So the owner invited us over to make a timeline for the wedding day and to iron out just a few details. And you know what? The issue started before we even met. She was made aware of the appointment well in advance and was very excited to come. I made sure to text her a week before and 3 days before to remind her, as is the standard procedure when making plans with her because she tends to be forgetful. So I'm sitting in the living room playing Baldur's Gate 3 and I can hear my fiance on the phone with her upstairs. We each call our moms at least once a week to chat, and he has a tendency to wander around the house when he does so. I could hear the conversation that he was having just at the top of the stairs, and I overheard her over the speakerphone telling him that his father was coming home on Wednesday, and they wanted to watch a shuffleboard competition. That's right, they wanted to watch it and not play in it. She then asked him to ask me to reschedule for another day so she could watch shuffleboard. He politely told her if she had other plans and couldn't make it, it was completely fine. She legitimately didn't have to come, and not in a rude way, as she really did know that. Well, she insisted that she does have to come to the appointment, and again asked him to ask me to reschedule the entire thing. So she feels she has to come along but make no attempt to prioritize it. I could not believe that she had the audacity to ask that everyone move their plans around for a shuffleboard game. I didn't even know they had any interest in it. Like, this literally was out of the blue. Naturally, we invited our parents to the appointment at the venue, and his dad travels for work, so it wound up being his mom and my parents. The venue owner, let's call her Jenny for the sake of the story, is a fun, easygoing, dorky, laid-back person, and she is great. She is just like me, and we have so much in common. We were all sitting around a table making our game plan for the wedding, choosing tablecloth colors and whatnot, and it was all okay, even with the minor hiccups caused by my mother-in-law's somewhat choppy social skills, which is partially due to the fact that only one of her hearing aids was working that day. This meant that Jenny had to repeat herself several times, re-explain the same thing immediately afterwards, even with us trying to help her out by re-explaining to my mother-in-law. Jenny was extremely professional, but she seemed a bit uncomfortable as time went on, and my mother-in-law kept low-key trying to make the decision for us. Jenny kept trying to redirect the conversation and politely remind her that the choices were for my fiance and I to make, and she was implying that we had plenty of time to figure out the specifics and it didn't need to be decided right now. They'll make what we tell them and then supply it, so there's no need to know just yet. Now, my mother-in-law got to meet the drunk version of me at a wedding a few months ago, and we talked and had a great time. She showed me a new kind of cocktail and was really pushing to have it at my wedding as well. And granted, the drink was good, but it's not really my favorite, and I really don't think I want it as one of the featured drinks at my wedding, and I politely said no to that suggestion. But she kept bringing it up and just kept pushing about it. Now, I'm not a bridezilla, but honestly, after so many polite shutdowns, I put my foot down and and firmly said no. And honestly, I might have even snapped at her. But this is the one day where I'm allowed to be selfish. The one day where I don't have to make allowances for my mother-in-law like everyone usually does. For once, what I say absolutely goes, so I just said no. Later, Jenny asked if we were doing the shoe game, the dollar dance, candle lighting, or anything else like that. My mother-in-law tried to persuade me to do the candle thing, but I'm honestly not interested. Again, I politely said I don't think I want to do it, and we did discuss what it usually entails, and it confirmed that neither I nor my fiance really wanted to do that. I said that we really want photos like that where we can just do it in nice clothing in the summer, but I don't want to do it in my wedding day. But she just kept on pushing it. I know she meant well, but I turned it down several times before I again firmly said no. I didn't raise my voice, but I just spoke confidently. My parents know I have always known what I want and don't want, and honestly, I thought my mother-in-law knew that too. My mom was proud of me for standing up for myself for once and just taking charge. It all came to a head when we were discussing what to do with the bar options. We decided to go with the one where we provide the alcohol and choose a few drinks to feature at the reception, with Jenny being willing to supply some bartenders. As my mother-in-law is trying to dominate the conversation, she's leaning closer and closer to Jenny, who is, by the way, getting increasingly uncomfortable. She never raised her voice, but she kept pressing the issue of wanting and expecting Jenny to have a list of drink suggestions. Now, she did say that people do vodka or whiskey, but she didn't suggest anything specifically because it isn't her specialty and it's our choice. And she had to repeat this several times, explaining that there was plenty of time for us to discuss it. And she tried to move along to the next item, but my mother-in-law just kept pressing about it. My mother-in-law isn't very observant and isn't very good at reading the room. We could all feel the tension rising as Jenny got more and more uncomfortable with my mother-in-law, showing very obvious signs of anxiety. Both my fiance and I tried explaining again and trying to get her to move on from the specific drinks that don't really matter yet. I mean, the wedding isn't September. Finally, Jenny cracked. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm sorry, this is feeling very hostile." And she was trying to avoid looking at my mother-in-law, who immediately got offended. My mother-in-law then said, "Do you feel like I'm attacking you?" Jenny then said, "Yes, I do." And poor Jenny is visibly shaken as she stands up for herself in as calm of a manner as she possibly can. She has anxiety just like me, and neither of us were doing that well. And we made it about 45 minutes into the appointment. My mother-in-law then gets angry and says, "Oh, just because I'm asking about drinks?" She then proceeds to slam her hands down on the table, echoing very loudly in the barn venue, and grabs her coat. Now, I do not handle stress well, and immediately teared up with a double order of nausea. She then started screaming, "Fine, if I'm not wanted, then I'll go." And then she stomped out of the building. I proceeded to try and fail not to cry, while Jenny apologized a million times and said that she hopes we don't think she's some kind of jerk. She even said that my mother-in-law could have been stressed from only having one hearing aid in and struggling to try and keep things straight. Jenny still tried to defend my mother-in-law and try to explain her actions away in some kind of way. Once I calmed down, the rest of the appointment went really smoothly, and we actually had a great time. Jenny is like the sister I never had, and my fiance was happy to give her advice on what dirt bike to get her 10-year-old kid. The air felt so much different and so much better once my mother-in-law left the room. The next day, she called my fiance and asked me to come over so that she could talk to him, and she only wanted him to be there. According to him, she insists that Jenny overreacted and that she was the one in the wrong, that the change was sudden and that she had no idea things were tense. But everyone else knew it. We kept exchanging looks and trying to move things along. She also told him that I hurt her feelings when I shut down all of her suggestions, namely the candle thing and the cocktails, and when I told her I don't really care for the drink that much. I mean, I didn't realize that it meant that much to her, and that she felt like we bonded over a drink. My mom pointed this out to me later, and I do feel bad, and I did see it on her face when I put my foot down. Now, I think this is the first time that my mother-in-law witnessed me taking a stand and like sticking to what I want to do, so you know what? I will apologize, but only after she does. So I need to know, am I the jerk for refusing to apologize first, or even offer an olive branch of some kind? What should I do? No, I do not blame you for not wanting to apologize first, because seriously, you didn't do anything wrong. You're not the one that stormed out of the appointment after freaking out on everybody. That definitely was your mother-in-law last I checked. And it was so totally obvious that your mother-in-law was trying to take over your wedding. She kept pushing for things that you didn't want to do, and it's almost like she wanted everything to be her way or the highway. And it was all over these super specific things, and that's just super annoying. Now, the original poster did give us an update, where apparently they got a birthday card with an apology from the mother-in-law, but there was no like actual admission of wrongdoing. It was mostly just her saying something like, "Oh, I'm sorry for how things went down at the venue, and I'm looking forward to your wedding wedding day. So I honestly think that's like the best we're gonna get when it comes to an apology, because the way this mother-in-law was acting was incredibly obnoxious, and there is literally no good excuse for that kind of behavior. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for getting angry at my family after they went on a cruise without me and intentionally left me out of all of their plans? Here's what happened. So my sister called me about 2 weeks ago and said on the phone that she had something she was excited about coming up, but she couldn't tell me. Now, I'm not the type of person to pry, so I just moved on without any question. A day or two later, I check her Snapchat story, and she is on a cruise, and I didn't think much of it. But on a call with my mother shortly afterwards, she informed me that she was on the cruise with my dad, my uncle, and my 3 cousins. For context, my parents are divorced, and everyone on the cruise lives in Georgia while I live in Florida where I'm going to college. A few days later, my sister calls me after docking on the Virgin Islands where she got service, and the first thing she says is that my dad won't tell her what he knows about me being gay. And for reference, I came out to my dad recently, but my sister has known for several years. After a bit of small talk, I ask her why I wasn't invited on the cruise, and she essentially says that she didn't think I could afford it. I told her it wasn't her place to assume my financial situation, and it would have been at least polite to invite me. I later learned that she had told everybody, including my close friends, and told them not to inform me, and she also said that the cruise was $3,000 a person. I also asked her why they decided to go on a 9-day cruise without me when we have been talking about going on a deep-sea fishing trip for several years now. And this is especially true since I moved to Florida. This is a very reasonable activity as I live on the coast, and there are charters within walking distance from my home that only charge you about $300 with all the equipment provided. This was a trip I had invited the whole family on, and something I had been wanting to do to ideally work on repairing mine and my father's already damaged relationship. She told me they would still come on the fishing trip, to which I responded by saying that I no longer wanted to go on it with them, and that if I went, they were no longer invited. She then said she still wanted to come visit me in Florida, and I said that if she came to Florida, then she needs to find a hotel, because she was not welcome at my place. They all got back a few days ago, and she hasn't called me, but has reached out to my mom to ask if I was still mad at her and my dad. It's frustrating to me because in the past, I have always been the person to come up and visit for the holidays, and when I've come up to visit around Christmas, she spends more time at her boyfriend's place or her friend's house than prioritizing spending time with me. Sometimes I would go, and the only time I would see her was when she would pick me up from the airport, and the time we would spend together, she doesn't plan any activity or have any meaningful conversation with me. I'm done going out of my way to visit them. I'm also not welcoming them into my home on the off chance they decide to come visit me either. I've been living out of state for 4 years now, and living in Florida for 1, and I haven't had them visit me once, but I've been there for every single major holiday. So am I the jerk for being upset? Am I out of line for not wanting them to visit? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really seems like they wanted to exclude you on purpose. And if that really is the case, then that is so toxic. Like, it doesn't seem like there's any good reason why that happened, but instead they just kind of went behind your back and said, okay, you're not going. And it's like, wait a second, I would have loved to go. For your sister to be like, oh, you wouldn't be able to afford that, that's why we didn't invite you. It's like, what are you talking about? The least you could have done was still invite me. Don't just not invite me because of some weird assumption you have. Like, that would really upset me if my family went on a cruise and said, oh, we didn't invite you because you're poor. Like, that reasoning alone would piss me off so badly. If my siblings said that, I would lose my mind on them. So I don't blame you for being upset about this, because in my opinion, they definitely did this behind your back, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. My mom is constantly making comments about everything that I wear, and it's really starting to make me mad, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm 29 years old, and I adore my mom, and I always will, but I need to know if I'm justified in being angry over this or not. Ever since I started working, making my own money, and buying myself things such as clothing or whatever, she has and is currently so suffocating with her comments and is constantly complaining. I used to hate it, but it's honestly even worse now. It is driving me utterly miserable, and I'm worried next time I will snap and say something that I'll regret. For example, last year the first occasion that really got to me was a new pair of shoes that I bought. They were very ugly, I know, but they were so comfortable, so I just didn't care. Our family was going to dinner that night, and when I arrived to the house beforehand, she commented on them. She was ranting and raving and calling them ugly and just straight up complaining. But it didn't stop there. For weeks afterwards, every time I wore them, she would keep making comments. I kept begging her to stop stop saying that I don't care what she thinks, but she would say, well, you should care. Sometimes I just see her look me up and down and ask me, what are you wearing, in some kind of like derogatory term. In the winter, I sometimes wear an ugly wool jumper, and she'll say to me, it's time to dump it, it's not nice. Or she'll just straight up say, oh, I do not like that jumper. She constantly comments on my jewelry as well. One night I was working, and she was clearly looking in the door because the next morning when we were chatting, she was asking me what earrings I was wearing because according to her, they looked big and stupid. A few weeks ago, when our family went on holidays, every single day she was making comments on my outfit. She would say something like, oh, don't wear that, wear this instead. And then if I would change after finally giving in, she would be like, oh, that's much better. In the summer, if I'm wearing trainers, she constantly just nags and says, why are you wearing sandals? But the worst of it was a couple of weeks ago during my birthday weekend. And I was working the actual day of my birthday, so the next day was the celebration. We got into an argument about something unrelated, and while I was off crying upset, she was in the kitchen screaming to my siblings. She was saying, oh, and did you see the state of her in the stupid top and those big shoes? And as a side note, those are shoes that she bought me. She was literally screaming because of some clothing that I was wearing, and I just could not believe it. If she doesn't like the color of my nails, she'll tell me that they're awful and that I shouldn't get them colored ever again. I joined late on holidays and I hadn't gotten my nails done beforehand, and one of the first things that she said was how awful the nails were and not to get them ever again. A few weeks ago, I came to the house wearing jeans or something like that, and one of the first things she said was, wow, why are you wearing that? I begged her to please just shut up, and she just started laughing and mocking me. I've never had an overriding desire to move out before, which I know is the solution here, but now I really want to. She's my mother and I do love her, but she is so suffocating. So seriously, am I doing something wrong here? I'm trying to save at the moment, which is why I still live at home, but I'm honestly at my breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Yeah, I really think your mom is a straight up bully. She is constantly saying awful things about the way you look, even though some of the things that you're wearing are literally things that she bought you. Like, that's the craziest part and probably the most ironic part in my opinion, because her complaints are literally about herself. So hopefully this gets better sooner than later and that you can eventually have enough money to move out of your mom's house, because the way she's been treating you, honestly, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My partner won't do basic things in his life and is blaming that on having ADHD. And after dealing with this for so long, I'm now at the point where I'm considering calling off the wedding that we're planning for, because right now I am so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, my partner and I have been together for 4 years, but we don't currently live together yet. And we are supposed to get married this winter, and we're gonna have something simple and small. Then the plan was that I'd move in with him for now, and we'd look for a place to move to that would be more central for both of our jobs. My partner has ADHD and is medicated, and he is successful in his work. However, when it comes to a very basic task, he just simply won't do them and then blames his ADHD. I am really understanding, but sometimes it becomes so annoying. He simply will not clean anything. He does have a cleaning lady come once a week, so things are mostly fine, but there have been times when she's away, and in her absence, he does literally nothing. She has been gone for 3 weeks, and during that time, he just lets dishes build up in the sink, he does no laundry, he doesn't change his bedding, and he doesn't even take out the garbage. The one I have the hardest time with is that he will often be behind on invoicing clients. He doesn't want administrative help from other people, and if anything, he wants me to do it, but I also have a full-time job. He doesn't feel comfortable working with anyone else, and the invoicing does take a bit of time, but it's really no big deal. And he doesn't get paid unless he does it. But over and over, he is just months late and starts to run out of money, because also he has a massive issue with budgeting. I find this stressful, and it often will affect me, and sometimes he needs to borrow some money just until he gets paid. Each day I'll ask him if he's done any invoicing, and he'll just reply by saying nope, but even despite that, he still manages to go get his hair dyed, or get a massage, or go to the dentist, or do yoga. I try to be understanding, but I'm getting so tired of it. He acts childish about basic responsibilities, but then he'll tell me that he's able to be very successful at work, which is true if he could budget, because he would be well paid off. I'm at the point in my frustration that I'm considering calling off the wedding, and maybe even breaking up with him, but I'm not sure if that is just because I'm feeling stressed out and frustrated, and that maybe there's some kind of workaround. I go back and forth in my mind between saying, okay, this is understandable for someone with bad ADHD, and I need to be more sympathetic and patient, while also saying, okay, this is ridiculous behavior for an adult. I appreciate any insight, especially from those who have ADHD, or someone who has partners who are dealing with that as well, because right now I'm at my breaking point, and I seriously just don't know what what to do. Okay, first of all, I don't blame you for being really frustrated because the way your partner is acting is completely inappropriate. Like, you guys are about to get married and he can't do like these simple basic things. He's letting the house fall apart and make it into a pigsty, and he can't even do his invoicing correctly so that he can get paid for his work. Like, that, in my opinion, is the big one where it's like, wait a second, you are not being responsible right now. This is not very promising for a good future between the two of us, and that definitely needs to change. Now, on a personal note, I also have ADHD, and it is very annoying to deal with. But I've learned that it can be like an explanation for why I can't really get things done, but it is definitely not an excuse. There are so many tools available for someone to be a functional, fully responsible adult in society. And in my opinion, the fact that he's like, oh, sorry, I didn't do it because I have ADHD, like, that is such a massive cop-out, it is just not even okay. Also, for a bit of context, this guy is 43 years old. So in my opinion, that is just not a good excuse. I'm sorry, that just does not hold up in my opinion. Because he is more than capable to get this stuff done, and I really think that if he's going to be your future husband, then he absolutely needs to be held to a higher standard. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.